Built Better, the podcast for home improvement contractors by Modernize Home Services.
Welcome to Built Better, a podcast made for home improvement professionals. By my side, as always, is Chris Pallatroni, co-founder of Modernize. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
It's wonderful today, Dom. Super excited to talk to another California neighbor.
California. Oh, man, I do miss that place, but Austin ain't so bad. So we just had Thanksgiving. As we record this, I think it's the beginning of December, so I don't know when we'll release it, but Chris, I'm feeling a little fat, buddy. I don't know what to say.
That's what the whole New Year's about, right? You can get yourself geared up to a gym membership, start working off that turkey.
I just bought a rowing machine, so I did the exercise equipment fad. So I'm that guy this year. So we shall see how it goes.
Just make it through February. That's all you got to do, and then you beat most of the people. So
we'll see. I'll be fine. I'll be fine. I just feel a little sluggish right now. But let's not bore everybody with my fatness. We'll talk about who's on the show today. So on today's episode, we're welcoming the owner and founder of Shugarman's Bath, Chase Shugarman. Chase, I want to bring you right in, my friend. How are you doing today?
Sweet. Thanks. Doing well. Yeah, it's beautiful out here, so can't complain.
Yeah. So just for the listeners here, Chase is in cold and just terrible San Diego. I don't know how he does it.
It's terrible.
Yeah, that's a fun place to be. So, yeah, appreciate you being on here. Definitely want to dig in here because your background is pretty interesting. You're originally from Ohio. You moved out to San Diego a couple of years ago. I looked on your LinkedIn. You had a stop in Hawaii. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I spent 2 years before moving here. I moved to San Diego 2 years ago, and for the 2 years before that, I was helping run a coffee farm in Hawaii.
That's another terrible place. I don't know. How are you doing this?
Yeah, I feel like I get lucky occasionally. So yeah, no, it was good. It was fun. It was a tourism business, so it was an opportunity to grow that, but also learn the farming side of things. But then I moved back here, and then we started this.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Shugarman's Bath. Can you just kind of give us the rundown of how it started, just so our listeners can get an idea of kind of where you're coming from here? Totally.
Well, I give the credit to my dad. He actually has a builder's background. He built homes for a long time. He also has a sales background. So for the past decade, he's been doing in-home sales in various capacities. And he learned about the products that we're using in the one-day bath space, and he was able to sell them really well. He loved them. And he was actually working for a company that he was doing really well in sales. And then they kind of wanted him to take over as the manager. And when you're in sales, you can kind of be left alone and do a good job to a certain extent. When you become the manager and there's an owner, there's definitely a level of being managed. And my dad is not the best at being managed. So after about a month of that, he was like, this isn't for me. And then he kind of looked at myself and my two brothers and pitched us the idea to start our own business. Cause he's like, this product is awesome. We got to get into it. And he knew an installer that was installing it as well, who had said, hey, if you ever go do your own thing, let me know and I'll join forces with you. So basically I had moved back from Hawaii, and I was helping my dad with an aspect of the business when he was just like managing it before he had pitched us on starting our own. And I left so I came back, I had moved back from Hawaii, and then I left for a trip. I was going to be gone for 2 months and then come back to San Diego and help work on the business that he was hired to manage. About a month into my trip, my little brother texts me and he's like, hey, Dad bailed on this opportunity. So just warning you, we don't really have a plan for when you come back. And so I was like, all right, well, I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I came back and we just talked about it, and he's like, we can do this ourselves. I think we'll do really well. And so that's how it started. We kind of bought in. He pitched us on the idea. We partnered up with the installer that he was working with. So he's like an owner as well. So it's, we call him our adopted brother now, but he's really close with us. And it really helped us get off the ground fast because we had the sales side down with my dad because he's really good at selling. And then we had the installation side down with Ruben, and it was really a good partnership from the beginning to get us rolling pretty quickly.
Oh, that's super cool. So you go from coffee in Hawaii to to running a family business. Yeah, sure. That's a wild ride. I don't hear that very often.
Totally. And my dad he presented it to us. He's like, honestly, I don't really want to run a business. I just want to sell stuff. So you guys do everything and just give me opportunities to sell stuff and I'll be happy. And he's obviously taken on a way bigger role than that because he's got a ton of experience and everything that we lean on him a lot for. But that was the pitch. Yeah.
So your dad's still out in the field selling?
He's our sales manager now.
I gotcha.
We had to talk him into that. But it's awesome. He does well.
Yeah. So do you see, I guess you kind of have to manage your dad though, in a half sort of way, right?
In a way, but it's very collaborative, you know. Mm-hmm. Technically that would be the case, you know, if you look at an org chart, but we make decisions kind of as a family together pretty regularly and hash things out. And, you know, it works well. Ultimately, if there's like a decision to be made and someone has to make the call on it, they defer to me. But besides that, we work well together.
I'm curious, Chase, like, you know, your dad came to you and said, hey, let's start this business. Obviously you had some people kind of connected there, which is great. When you came back and you decided like, hey, I don't really want to run the business. And you decided I'll take on that responsibility. I'm curious, like when I look at your background, correct me if I'm wrong, like you didn't have a background in like owning a company prior to this, right? Like you hadn't been an owner responsible for like all the facets. Had you had that background?
Not really, but it was what I kind of always wanted. I went to school, I studied business, you know, I just had like a 4-year undergrad degree, and coming out of that, the role that I had at the coffee farm was more or less like running a business. It was myself and a general manager that took this farm that had, you know, a handful of employees to 20 plus by the time I left. And it was like growing a retail business and having your hands in everything. So most of my experience came from that. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty young. I don't have like an extensive background of really owning anything. So, which is fun. I have a lot of years left to do stuff. So
yeah, no, I think that's great. I'm curious just if you could just share with, because there's so many people out there that are thinking of starting their own business, right? And there's just so much apprehension people have of this fear of failure, of God, what if it doesn't work out? And it seems like you navigated through that somewhat seamlessly. Were there any, I guess, apprehensions that you had when the ball was kind of set in your court and it was like, hey, it's up to you to like decide to like move this thing forward or not? Were there any sort of concerns that you had? And maybe you can talk a little bit about like, if you had any, how you kind of persevered through that and just kind of plowed forward to build it. I think a lot of people would be interested to hear that.
Totally. So the apprehension, I think, came more as once we started to grow. So when we grew, at the very beginning, you know, it was pretty easy because, and I don't want to say easy, but it was very comfortable. So my brother was on the phones converting our leads, and he'd pass them off to our dad, who was going out and selling them. And then Ruben, who we knew was going to install it, would go out and do it. And we knew that he would install it every time perfectly. But when we grow, there's always a little bit of like, oh man, if Ruben's not doing the installs, then how are we going to get the jobs done as good as we want them to be? Or if Casey isn't on the phones, or how is like that, you know, that going to sound like, is our reputation going to get hurt because of that? So the apprehension comes from making sure as we grow to continue to like kind of live by our values and like taking care of our customers as much as possible. And that's where it gets tricky. And we just made sure to like, we built a team over the last 2 years that we feel really confident in that can do that. And we have to rely on other people to do a good job, and also create kind of a culture where people are, enjoy doing their work and are happy. And I think that all gives us more of a level of comfort that if they're doing that, then they're going to take care of the customers as well as we want them to. But that's where the apprehension always came from, is like, as you grow, making sure that you're growing but not like losing sight of the foundation that you kind of built it on.
Yeah, the scale from the mom and pop shop. I mean, in this case, you kind of were mom and pop shop. Maybe not the mom, but definitely the pop.
Yeah.
And then trying to keep that culture integrated as you scale up. It's not an easy thing to do by any means. How do you hire people that bring the values and have the same type of values as you do? Is there a typical methodology that you try to, as you bring new people in?
So we had to learn that the hard way, I would say. When we first started, we would bring people in because it was especially needed for installers, because we were getting more jobs and we needed to hire people to help with the installs. And so Ruben and I would do a lot of the interviews together, and we'd just be like, oh, can you do this and this and this? And they'd say yes. And we'd be like, all right, we'll give it a shot. And then we realized, that that's not the best way to hire people. And you may get someone that's not a good fit because they don't care about the customer as much and they just want to get it done, or maybe they're sloppier or whatever. So when we interview, our general manager here kind of has helped us really iron out this process. And she basically, makes sure that we are, one, identifying any red flags, if they've bounced around to lots of different jobs and, talk negative things about their previous employers. We also ask them what their values are. And if those values align with what ours are, then they're much more likely to be a good fit. And we don't bring people in and just throw them out into the field right away anymore. They have to work with a lead installer to make sure that person feels comfortable working with this person, and that this is someone that can go into the homes of our customers, because that's, it's a pretty sensitive situation, and you want to make sure that you're sending the right people in. So, really making sure that the values line up, that that we're acknowledging and noticing red flags, because I'm not very good at that. And so I don't take as much in place of like the hiring process for our installers. And that's kind of the philosophy that we've started to use to get better at that and build a good team.
Got it. Yeah. So many people, especially, I manage a team of account managers, and in the beginning, folks are just so scared to make mistakes. And I always tell them, really, experience goes to the folks that have made the mistakes. That's only how you get experience. Now, you don't want to make the same mistakes over and over again. That's just insanity. But you gotta make mistakes to learn. And so I would say, would you agree with the idea that like business owners should not be scared to make mistakes?
Yeah, 100%. That's where, when we're growing, a little bit of the fear comes from making mistakes, and you're going to make them. And it's also important for the installers to know that if they make a mistake, that's okay, but you got to tell us what happened so that the customer doesn't tell us, or, and just be honest with it. You're not going to get fired because you made a mistake. But if you lie about it, then that's a whole different story. So I agree. Owners and employees should not be afraid to make mistakes, but they got to learn from them as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to create, and Chris and I talk about this all the time. You want to create a culture of safety, right? So where, I made a mistake here, but my boss isn't going to be mad because he understands that those things will happen. And then you end up having people make less mistakes because they're not worried about all that, right? And so that is important. So if you're listening out there and you manage people, be proactive, but don't. The mistakes are a good thing, I would say, as Chase has kind of outlined. Chris, I want to bring you in on that subject. No, that's a near and dear subject to you.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with everything you said. I think it does start from the leaders of the company, and I actually wanted to circle back to some of the values you guys have, Chase, because I don't hear too many companies, at least in conversations, bring up the idea of values, and I think they're so critical, both on a business level and on a personal. Would you mind sharing some of the things that you guys look at or kind of dear to you guys when you're bringing people aboard, or just the way you look at your business from a value perspective?
Yeah, and I want to preface that by saying like this is a big topic of our business over the next like month. We're trying to get it super ironed out because we want it to be, very obvious to everyone what they are. We've kind of loosely been saying, quality, service, and integrity because they're like the easiest ones to quickly pick up on. We obviously want the jobs to be done correctly and to a high level of standard. We call it like showroom quality. Integrity, we want people to be honest. If you made a mistake, tell us. Don't, it's just do the right thing when people aren't looking, do what you say you're going to do. And then the service component is like, go above and beyond for your customers. I mean, we've got some just crazy stories of where we've just gone kind of on another level to make sure that our customers are taken care of. And we'd rather spend a little extra money to make sure that they're happy than to, risk our reputation. And it's worth it. I mean, we've got all 5-star reviews across the board on all the, platforms. And you don't see that very often in the remodeling industry because it's pretty challenging to do. But we take that very seriously, and it kind of pays off in dividends. And it's the right thing to do, So those are some of them. But also in our values, we're also looking at growth as one. We like people that want to grow. We've had an installer come here, and he ended up moving, and we helped him start a business in another state because by just giving him advice, helping him with leads and marketing. And he's like forever thankful. And he had a lull in his business, and he comes back and he's, right now he's doing a month of installs for us while they're waiting for some other things to kick off. So, we're okay with helping people grow, even if that means that they grow to not be a part of our business anymore. But if that's what's best for them, then, it's good. And we'll keep that relationship strong. So growth is another kind of value that we're considering putting as one of our main ones.
God, I love that. And I love the fact that you shared something on it. I'm hopeful that you can share maybe something on the service side. Because I do agree. I think especially as companies scale, it just gets harder to maintain quality, right? Mm-hmm. And quality can be so vague in terms of, I think of it as the entire experience somebody has with you, which is well before you ever step into their home, right? It's the moment they call your office. It could be the way they look at your website. It could be the decal on your truck. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that kind of play into the customer experience. But when you guys think of, having a good customer experience, going above and beyond, do you have anything that like a story that kind of stands out in your mind as to like an example of what that really means for you guys?
Yeah, there was one that we were thinking about stories as we came up with our values. So I had just mentally have this one like kind of ready because I was talking about it the other day. But like 6 months ago, we had, we started experiencing all these shipping delays, and it's still happening now, but they're more predictable because they've been happening. And we had a shipment that was supposed to arrive on multiple different days, and we had to reschedule a customer like twice because of it. And then we had them scheduled for a Wednesday of the following week. And the shipment was supposed to arrive on that Monday right before that Wednesday. And we get a call saying that they're not sure where the shipment is. And we're kind of drilling deeper. We're like, how do you not know where it is? I mean, there's tracking information. There's a ton of ways to figure that out. And eventually we're kind of calling every like 20 minutes trying to figure this out. And they get us an answer. They're like, it's somewhere in Orange County. We're like, all right, Orange County is a couple hours away, but if we can narrow it down, we can maybe help this process. And again, we're calling constantly, and this is still on Monday. And we eventually get them to tell us like, okay, it's definitely arrived at this, it's been checked out at this particular warehouse. But they still don't know where it is. It's been checked in, but they have no idea where the pallet is. And then after another several rounds of calls, they finally call us back and they're like, nope, the pallet is here and it's been destroyed and it like got damaged in shipping. It's not salvageable. And we're like, I don't know, our materials are pretty good. They're pretty like resilient. Like maybe it just fell apart and it is salvageable. So the next morning they drive up like a couple hours away just to like dig through. They still don't even know where the pallet is. So they just drive up to go help find the thing. And eventually they get up there, they find the pallet. It's completely in shambles. And they had brought a trailer and they actually got all the materials. They trailered them up and it turns out everything was salvageable. Like nothing was, there were a couple of minor scratches that we could like buff out, but we were able to get all the materials, bring them back and install the job, not on time because we had still missed a couple of dates, but we were able to get it that time for them. And yeah, I don't know how many places are willing to like take the risk of killing a couple, of your, we weren't that as big as we are now. And it was like a big step for a chunk of our team to go figure this out and make it happen. My brother and I are blowing up the phones of our shippers, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't delay this customer again. So we were going to do everything it took to get what we could and bring it all back. And we were all like just thrilled that we made it happen. And I don't know if that customer even knows that we went through all of that for them, but it was pretty satisfying to pull it off.
Man, that's super cool. Thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah,
I've dealt with many a home improvement contractor, and that doesn't really happen very often by any means, especially for my own projects. Tesla, if you're out there, I'm still waiting for my batteries. So if we can get that going, it's been months. Snowpocalypse could happen again.
Texas is like it does feel like it's starting to change. Like I talk to a lot of owners of other companies and people are starting to care a lot about this, and it's mm-hmm. fun, and hopefully homeowners can start to trust some of the companies that are out there more, that we do care, and we're just trying to figure out how to service lots of customers and do it the best way possible.
Yeah, there was an interesting thing. I was talking with forget the name of a company, but we were talking about products and the same thing. I think it was a window company. And it was the same thing, right? It's hard to kind of predict when the product's coming in and dealing with these issues. And one of the things that came up, and speaking of Tesla, Dom, I actually had a really positive experience when I had my solar panels put on from Solar City. But one of the things that they did that was really nice, and I think adversity, if we want to call product shipments adversity, I think there's unique opportunity in there. One of the things that I experienced, and this was years before we had this problem, was the idea of Solar City did a really good job of building in, because there's a lot of steps along the process of installing solar panels. It's like you get an initial guy to come out, and then there's like an inspection, and then there's a process, and then there's financing, and then there's like the company, like the city has to sign. There's just a lot of steps that go through. And I think for most consumers, just being in the know is so critical. Don't get me wrong, there are some of those people out there that are very demanding of like, you said this date, it has to, but most people I think just want to know like, hey, what is happening? Mm-hmm. And I think it's the idea of just giving them some transparency and visibility as to like, well, where are we at in the process? Even if it is a little off from our expectation. And so one of the things Solar did a really nice job of, because of the complexity of a solar cell, is they provided we'll just call it like a mini dashboard, that once you decided to purchase the panels, and you were going to go through all these different steps over a course of a couple months, you could log in, and at any point you could see exactly where you were at in that process. And they had the ability to kind of update it, but you could see like, oh, okay, got you. I'm at this stage, and then this stage should be complete by such and such date. And, it's not that it had happened exactly the way that dashboard portrayed, but it was kind of this confidence that was given to a homeowner of like, oh, okay, I can see my project here. I know the next step is, John's coming back to my house to do so-and-so. And, by here, I should be at this particular milestone or whatnot. And I think this may, give people an opportunity to kind of think about how do you give the homeowner slightly more visibility as to like where their project stands? Because I know in the window space, these guys are out anywhere from 8 to 16 weeks. You know what I mean? And it can be battery. Look at Dom. Dom's still waiting for his battery here. And so I don't know what it is in the bath space, but just the idea of increased visibility goes a really long ways. And I think that's one of the things that we might see come out of this, is just a little bit more transparency as to where people are at once they sign a contract, but haven't quite had the job completed yet. So
Yeah, I mean, I everything you're saying is so true. That's awesome that they have sort of like what I look at and I see as like the model for a really good experience that I would love to figure out someday is like, if you ever ordered from Domino's Pizza, they've got like your pizza, like the pizza tracker. And if they had that for home remodeling projects, it's like, that's basically what you just described. Cause we're like out 8 to 12 weeks because of materials. And if, it's when they start to wonder, so we have like text messages that we send out, we try to go no more than 3 weeks without someone hearing from us. And if it hits that mark, we'll even just send them something that says, hey, we haven't forgotten about you. There's still time before we get your materials. We'll let you know when it's here. But if they had like a visual, like you just described, that would be even better. And hopefully we can all get to that point.
Man, I can't believe you just dropped the dominoes. I was going to say that.
Oh, really?
No, but literally, that's, psychologically, that's why they invented the progress bar on websites with loading, is because a lot of people will bounce off of the website if they don't know when it's going to actually come up there. But even if it's kind of fake, even if you give somebody a progress bar that's kind of timed out to the normal load speed, then they'll stay on and do that. So I think from a like an install time perspective, that would be obviously huge for the rest of the remodeling industry. But I think that also segues into just the top of the funnel before you even sell somebody on any of your products, is just the following up and the communication gap that there typically is for people that are inquiring about services. Mm-hmm. I think that's, there's no secret. Modernize is a marketing company. Mm-hmm. Homeowners come to us to find contractors. And the stories and the experience that I've had and the things that I've seen with folks, working the leads that we sell to contractors it's pretty wild. I'm going to be honest with you. It's fun to have the stories, but in the moment as an account manager, it's like, what's going on? So, one of the things that the listeners should know is Shugarman has been a pretty good customer of Modernize and very effective in reaching out to homeowners. So mm-hmm. Part of the reason why I thought it would be a great opportunity to have you on the show today was just to talk about your strategy and how you guys follow up with leads, because it's really important for homeowners to get that information as quickly as possible so they can make their good decisions. And you'd be surprised how many times I've personally put in a inquiry into a home improvement company for my house and never received a call back. And so it's wild. So why don't you just kind of give us the lowdown to talk a little bit about, I would say the first thing is, I know that you all have an outsourced call center. Is that right?
Kind of right.
Yeah.
It's an outsourced call center that we also own. So it's called Sharp Scheduling, and it started because we went through. Our whole call center journey started with my brother, and he was doing all the calls, but he got too busy and it was impossible to do that and manage the supply chain and production and everything. So we hired a company that we thought would be able to handle our calls. We did it for 2 to 3 months. We weren't converting. We didn't like the customer experience we had, like with how they sounded on the phone as much. So it just wasn't a good fit. So we moved on, and I actually, a buddy of mine that I had worked with out in Hawaii, I convinced him to come join us and just to be on the phones and to make it happen. And he did, which was awesome because he was like our best, he was really good salesman. He's good on the tech side and selling. And it was, it's like perfect. So he was going to do the whole job remote from Hawaii, and he still lives out there. And once we realized what he did, he took our sales in November of last year. Like, this is a year ago. He started like right at the beginning of December, and November sales were like 300,000, and December we doubled it. It was about 600,000. And then 2 months later, we're at $1 million in sales. And a big chunk of that is being able to convert on the leads, be able to handle them and hit them really fast. And he was really good at it. And we realized, and that's when we started to turn it into kind of more of an outsourced call center, because we wanted to offer that service to other people. And that's what we do now. And it's really been a lot of fun, but that was kind of the journey to to where we're at now, to using what's technically an outsourced call center, but one that we started ourselves. So.
Gotcha. Well, thanks for clarifying that. I was given the wrong information.
That's all good.
No, I'm kidding. But let's dig into that a little bit, because calling on leads it's kind of an art and a science in itself, right? So the person that's calling on the leads has got to be supported by a lot of different mechanisms. There's a tech stack involved. People think it's like, oh, I got a cell phone, I can call on a lead. That's really not the case, right? So why don't you just kind of pop the hood a little bit on that and tell us, like, how do you go to market with a homeowner that you don't know?
Yeah, I mean, so the lead comes in. We use Five9 and connect it with our CRM or any of our clients' CRM, and basically the leads come in. But I'll just use
for everybody's knowledge, Five9 is a dialer solution. It's a telephony system.
So for Shugarman's Bath, a lead from Modernize will come in. It'll automatically go into our CRM, and it automatically gets kicked to both Five9 and Hatch, which is like a text and email communication platform. So instantly they're getting texts and emails from us saying, hey, we're about to reach out, or hey, when's a good time to call? Because, sometimes that will get somebody, people always respond to texts. There's some crazy stats out there, like 98% of texts get responded to or looked at or opened or whatever it is. But they don't always answer the phone. So we're hitting both angles pretty much instantly. So Five9 helps us hit them on the phone, and then Hatch makes sure that we get them while we're texting. And then when they do pick up the phone, we've got trained people that understand our product. It's not just anybody. It's someone that, knows the business, knows what we're trying to do. And they have a little bit of a sales aspect to them as well, where they, can overcome, common pushbacks on various things. Like, for example, one thing that we specialize in the wet area, or just the tub and shower portion of the bathroom. And lots of people want a full bathroom remodel. So our callers know to, if they want a full bathroom remodel and they are pushing back on, what we may do, they know how to respond to that and still set the appointment and give a good opportunity for a sales rep to go out there, and close it. So it's important to have the right people on the phones and to have the right technology in place to quickly get to people. You need to be fast. Because a lot of times,
before we move forward on that one, just question, I'm kind of intrigued in how you would take somebody that wants a full bathroom remodel and push them towards setting an appointment with just the wet area remodel.
Totally. Well, so basically the wet area is the most difficult part of the bathroom, and the part that in most cases you do first, because it's kind of in the back. So if you're tearing out part of the bathroom, it makes sense to start there. It's also the trickiest, and the part, there's lots of leaks that we run into from someone that tried to do it themselves. It's the most complicated. And a lot of times with a full bathroom remodel, they may want some flooring or a new vanity. And a lot of times you can do it yourself or find a handyman to do it for far cheaper than we would ever charge to do it. But the area that you don't want to take the risk on, or a lot of times can't really do yourself because it's a lot more tricky, is the shower. So that's a big part of the pitch. And we also, we've got contractors that are now, like a contractor that we're pretty close with, that we will refer the other parts of the bathroom out to, because he takes those on and enjoys doing those. And so it kind of is a nice partnership where, hey, we'll do the wet area and we'll help you find someone that'll do the other part. But you want a specialist for the wet area. You want someone that just does that and is super focused on that, because they won't screw it up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you'd be surprised with how much business people turn away because they're not willing to peel the onion just a little bit and maybe get that second no when they're talking to somebody. Yeah, we might not do exactly what you want, but let me tell you why maybe that's not what you actually want, or maybe that's not as advantageous for it. So that's a great approach.
Totally. And even a 1% increase on your leads converted to appointments makes a huge impact on the bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. So sorry, we derailed the tech stack conversation and the outreach conversation for some rebuttal statements. So let's take back in. So speed to lead. So obviously you've got an email and text campaign. So I guess why, I know the answer. It's a rhetorical question for me, but so why still call? And why still call quick?
Yeah, I mean, you want to get on the phone if you can talk to somebody on the phone, you're much more likely to set an appointment. You can better qualify the lead. The texting is a means to get somebody on the phone. So if you can call and get them to answer, that's a faster route than texting and setting up the call. But you always, it builds trust when you're actually talking to someone, when they hear that it's a person that knows what's going on. So that's kind of the main reason why.
Yeah, that's the answer I thought you were going to say, and I appreciate it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
It was a leading question. I can't help myself sometimes. Why don't we pivot, because we only have a few minutes left here, and again, Chase, really appreciate you going into this level of detail here. I think it's super helpful especially for the emerging businesses that thinking about it, and we need more quality contractors. So definitely appreciate that. But pivoting a little bit to the marketing strategy then. So you're a customer of Modernize, but that's only one type of channel and one type of lead source. So can you give us a rundown of what your overall marketing strategy is as a new kind of emerging business that's looking to scale?
Totally. So Modernize we use a few different lead sources, Modernize being one of them, probably the one that we have the biggest monthly budget with as well. We have we spend a lot on pay-per-click, so Google and Bing advertising. We have a big direct mail budget, which we've started doing recently, a year ago, but we've upped it quite a bit. Direct mail is more of like an organic kind of branding play, but we assign tracking numbers to every different piece of mail that goes out there, so we know kind of which direct mail company it would have come from, and we track them as closely as we can to find out, to make sure that our spending is going to the right place. We have a TV campaign going, which we started only like 2 months ago, and it's already been having a good amount of success. So I guess the strategy is to have a broad range of things. Like, don't only focus on one thing, but try to have lots of things going. Make sure that you're building your brand, but also, make sure that you get leads from the lead sources that are constantly, it's super reliable. With Modernize, we get a couple hundred leads a month, and it's automatic. It's a numbers game. So we know how many we're going to set, we know how many we're going to sell, and it's very consistent. So you want to have all of those things in place as you grow. And also, when you are trying out any marketing thing, you got to give it a fair shot. You can't, do it for a month and say it didn't work. You got to look internally and see how you can, work with the lead provider to maybe optimize their campaigns and figure out how it's going to work for you, because it should work. It just takes sometimes some tweaking to make it right on both ends, either the lead providers, the way that they're getting the leads, or on your own processes for how you follow up with them. So that is kind of the quickest way to summarize our strategy.
There was so much subtly said in there, Chase, and so much you've actually said over the last 20 minutes. I want to call out a couple things, because I find this probably the most intriguing part of what I do. And Dom's in the same boat as, we talk to such a variety of contractors across the country. We're a US based company, and we deal with in so many different categories, from windows to solars to bath to HVAC. And we deal with companies of such varying size, $1 billion companies, multi-million dollar companies, and then people that are just starting the company, literally just starting. And what I find so fascinating about it is that we talk a lot about a recipe, and we talk a lot about buying a lead and working it, assuming you have a somewhat dialed a recipe, is incredibly predictable. And yet we deal with companies that don't have predictable results. They're all over the place. And sometimes we're dealing with a $500 million company that literally could not connect the dots if they're trying. And then we stumble across, and we've got plenty of them, and it sounds like you're one of them, where we deal with, smaller companies that may be $5 or $10 million or even smaller, and they're so dialed in. And they're doing so many little things right. And they kind of stack up upon each other that their performance literally is leaps and bounds above some of the bigger players out there. And I think it's just such a really important thing. And I think there's a lot of power in those statements because, what the internet has done in a lot of ways, especially if we're talking about PPC campaigns or buying leads from us, is it's leveled the playing field in some ways. You could start a company tomorrow and start buying leads. You can start a company tomorrow and start doing PPC, and you can compete with the billion-dollar brands out there. And if your process is dialed in and you are focused more on the customer experience, I know we didn't talk a lot about it, but I would imagine if you really pulled the curtain back and started to share like the way you think about the customer journey, it's probably everything from like the moment the phone gets dialed to everything, even before you even get a salesperson out of the house. I'd imagine even if you're 5 minutes late, you're calling the homeowner to let them know you're 5 minutes late. And there's so much about that journey that if you do it right, the results are incredibly predictable. And what we've seen over the years, and especially what I preach this, because everybody's always asking, well, what makes a great company great? And yes, it is your tech stack and it is your processes. But I would say more than those things, it's the way that the owners think about the business. If you think internet leads are going to work and you think about the customer journey, and these are the things that kind of you obsess over, then you're going to constantly put better tech in front of your team. You're going to challenge them to come up with better scripts, better objection handling. You're going to do a lot of those little things really well, which start to stack up. And next thing you know, you're so far in the right direction compared to some of your competitors. And so this is more for, I guess, the people listening to this, that it's such an important thing to understand. Like, you don't have to be highly sophisticated to have great performance. You just have to want to do a good job for the consumer, and then just be diligent about paying attention to all those little points along the journey, and then just trying to do the best job that you can. And it sounds like you guys have figured that out really well. I mean, I've seen your performance with our company, and you perform at an upper echelon that's superior to a lot of really large organizations out there, which I think fares really well for you guys, especially as you start to grow your company. So, long statement there.
Was that a question, Chris? That was a long statement.
Yeah, it was a long statement. It was more for the viewers there, just because I think it's so important. Because everybody's always trying to figure out, well, what's the recipe? How does this stuff work? And I mean, here you got a company like Chase that, Chase, how many years have you guys been in business at this point?
Almost 2.
You're in 2 years. And what's your guys' run rate right now from a revenue perspective?
We're selling about $1 million a month. So we'll do just under 10 this year and probably 12 or 13 next year.
So for a company to not exist 3 years ago, to be on a run rate to do 10 to 15 million a year and outperform companies that have been doing this for 20, 30 years is really impressive. There's a lot to be said there. So kudos to you guys, man. You're doing a lot of things really well over there.
Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You got a good team, so that helps.
It's a lot about who is working the leads, who is managing the process, what that process looks like, and the methodology. And to me, I came up as a salesperson, and I would look through my CRM and I would get my leads from our data team, and I would dial on leads that had been dialed on hundreds of times. And I get somebody on the phone and it's been dialed on 100 times on every list, because they're a business owner. And how did I sell something that somebody else said was a bad lead? Right? I mean, it just goes to show you. So if you're taking anything from this and from what Chase has said, it's really a lot about the process and how you think about it. So that is spot on. And just in terms of thinking about things, end of 2021, weird to say, but 22 is on the horizon. So, just as a home services professional, Chase, what are you thinking about for 2022?
A couple things. I think that the two things that are on the forefront of our minds are this: we've reinvested a lot. We've been investing to grow quite a bit, but it's time for us to really dial it in and get profitable. So actually being profitable so that we feel comfortable going through another big iteration of growth is really on our minds for the next couple of months, probably through the end of Q1, and obviously forever. But it's just sort of getting the system in the right place to work properly, because we want to continue to expand. And then also really getting super clear on our values and our vision and what it is that we want to put out to the world as to who we are and really being very clear on our definition of what we believe in. So those are our two things for kind of the first quarter of this year that we're going to be like super honed in on and making work, as well as in the constantly hiring and training installers. I mean, that's the key to this whole business, is having really good people that are going into your customers' homes, and you can never have enough quality installers. So
yeah, that is true. You touched on a subject. We don't have too much time to unpack that here, but where have you identified where the profit leaks are currently? And
there's like few of them. There's a matter of like, just as we've grown so fast, we need to get our systems in place for like getting really good at returns, or getting really good at just making sure we're not accidentally wasting money in areas that we might be, where we've just focused on growth and like, just doing whatever it takes to get to where we need to be. And now kind of like really diving into the P&L to figure out where some of the leaks are. There's currently like a shipping leak that we're exploring. There's a few, and once we get kind of back to that sort of foundation, we'll feel pretty good about it. And also just a matter of like installing enough to keep up with our sales pace. So we're selling a lot and ordering lots of materials ahead of time. And so we're kind of switching our accounting system from cash to accrual so that we can better understand the numbers, because our profits look a lot lower than they are because maybe we're ordering a ton of materials ahead of when we need them, and we're not installing enough to keep up the pace. And that's about to take a big shift this month, which will be our biggest install month probably ever, and then next month, and then the coming months. So that's another less of a leak and more of just once we kind of turn the tide on that a little bit, we'll be feeling pretty good.
Nice. It's funny because I watch Shark Tank a lot. And a lot of times the folks are going on Shark Tank just so they can get a shark to fund their POs and all their inventory.
My brother and I have been cruising through Shark Tank the last couple of weeks.
Chase, could be an opportunity. Let's bring in Mark Cuban. Let's go.
Oh, man. I want to listen to the Modernized podcast.
There you go. I don't know if he does. Maybe he will. That'd be fun. That's about our time. Chase, I honestly, I really want to thank you. It's been a fun conversation. It's good to get to know you. Thank you for being for such a fun and a great customer of ours and a great podcast guest, if I don't say so myself. Chris, did you have any closing thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I'm just inspired by you, man. I think you guys are doing a killer job out there. And I think, not that it's all about growth, but I think growth in some ways kind of lets you know if you're on the right path. And you guys are killing it, man. So I'm super excited to see, add another 5 years to this, 10 years. And I mean, at this pace, you guys will be one of the biggest brands out there. So I think you guys are doing great role model for other companies as well. So kudos to you guys.
Hey, I appreciate that. That it was fun being on here. Do you mind if I throw in like a plug for our call center?
100%. Go ahead.
So we have, our call center, I mentioned the name earlier, but if anyone needs help, or as we're good at converting on modernized leads. And our company is called Sharp Scheduling. And we're happy we're looking for a few more clients right now, just in the bath space. So like typically the 1 day bath space, but a lot of companies that we work with do full bathroom remodels. But it literally changed the game for us. I mean, once we started using ourselves, but now we've helped get different companies off the ground and get them running. We doubled our sales twice in 4 months, and now we're running at $1 million a month pace, and that's in part because of just having the system so ironed out and being able to set plenty of good appointments. So
yeah, Chase, I can actually attest to your performance. I've heard of Sharp Scheduling before, didn't know you owned it.
Really?
But now I do. And so my account managers have given us real positive feedback on Sharp. So if you are looking for a third party, which a lot of our customers are, because that's one of the hardest things to do is to run a call center, definitely check out Sharp Scheduling. Thanks again, Chase. This was fun. And if anybody wants us to talk with another company, or if you want to be on the show, you can email us at modmail@modernize.com. That's MODMAIL@modernize.com. And as always, show some love to your favorite podcast by leaving us a review and subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Everybody take care. Thanks for listening.